Welcome to Vintage Variety. A while back, I had one of my viewers ask me if I had any ideas or tips as to what to do with those skinny wire bangles that you'll often get in jewelry jars, bags, or lots. I did do content on how I would turn those kind of into charm bracelets. If you missed that content, I'll leave a link to it in the description box below this video. I also had a longtime subscriber, Teresa, mentioned that she thought it would be a great idea to make them into wind chimes. So that's what I'm going to do today. I have an idea of how I would like to repurpose some of these wire bangles into a wind chime. And I'm going to do that with you guys. Hopefully I'll give you some great ideas. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this project turns out well. I have quite a few wire bangles that I'm going to use in this project today. I'm also going to be using some jewelry wire, and I thought about using a thicker gauge, but I don't think that's what I need for this project. Instead, I'm going to use the wire you see on this roll, and I think this is like maybe a 24 or a 26 gauge. It's a very flimsy wire, whereas the other one's going to be a little bit too thick. I'm also going to be using some beads. The ones I've decided to use for this project are these little glass beads. And you can see there's multiple colors on this string. I try to keep things like this handy. A lot of times I'll save loose beads because you never know when you can use them to make a piece of jewelry or in some kind of project or to repair a piece of jewelry. I need to do some wire wrapping. Now, I used to like to wire wrap a lot. I'm not that great at it, but I'm good enough at it that you guys can get the basic idea. It's one of those things that practice makes perfect. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to roll off some of this very flexible jewelry wire. And this is about an 8-inch bracelet. So I'm going to roll off a piece that's probably going to be maybe about 12 inches or more longer. So I am going to have some excess wire, and I am going to cut about 12 pieces of wire this length. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how I'm going to wrap this onto the bracelet, because this is going to be the top part of my wind chime. I've cut 12 pieces of this wire, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to wrap these onto the bracelet. So I'm just going to start with one wire, and I'm going to kind of hold on to one end of the wire like I'm doing here. And I'm also going to hold the bracelet between my fingers, and then I'm just going to pull the long end of the wire through. And you don't want to pull too hard, but you want to get it pulled through there and wrapped around firmly. For this, I'm going to wrap the end of the wire maybe 3 to 4 times. You can wrap it up to 5 times if you want to. I wouldn't do any more than that because we're going to wrap all of the pieces of wire on here. So we want to have room for everything. Now you can see I have a piece sticking up there. I'm going to grab that with my jewelry pliers. And I'm going to go ahead and just wrap that on around. I am going to use my finger. This is a very soft wire, so it's not too hard on your fingers, but doing this can be kind of rough on your fingernails, and I'll show you guys why in a minute. So you don't want the wire to catch on anything, so I like to go back and just give it a pinch or a squeeze with my pliers, just to kind of press it down against the bracelet. And then I'm going to take my nails and I'm going to push all of these loops where I loop the wire on together. And you can do this as neat as you want to. I like doing it this way because it makes it a little more uniform. So the rest of my wire is just kind of hanging loose. And what I'm going to do next is I am going to wrap all of the wires like this, and I'm going to leave, of course, a long piece of wire is hanging loose from the bracelet. So you can kind of see here, I'm just kind of tightening up what I've already done. I'll go off camera, stop recording for a bit so I can get all of the pieces of wire wrapped on here. And then I'll come back and I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about so you'll have a really good understanding of what I'm doing here. Before I go off camera, I want to tell you guys that what I'm going to do is I am going to wrap all of the wires side by side. So I'm going to go in here beside this first one and I'm going to wrap the second one and then the third and then the fourth until I have all 12 of the wires wrapped onto this bracelet. It is kind of time consuming, but this is something you can sit and do while you're watching TV or listening to a podcast or something along those lines. So I'll be back in a few minutes with all of my wires wrapped onto the bracelet. And here we are. I have all of the wires wrapped and you can see how this looks. So I've pushed all of the wrappings together and then I have all of these long wires hanging off of the end of the bracelet. So I'm going to pull those forward. And many of you probably already know what I'm going to make. I am going to make a tree of life. And the way you do this is you take these really long wires and you wrap them at the bottom of something. You can do this a lot of different ways. I've made pendants this way back when I was really into wire wrapping. Right now I see some loose pieces that are sticking out, so I'm just going to go back and I'm going to give a squeeze and tighten those up and then push the wires back together. So you can see where I've pushed all of this together tightly, and now I'm going to grab all of these wires and I am going to start twisting them. And you don't want to twist too far up, but what I'm doing here is I'm twisting this, and this is going to make my tree trunk. Give you guys a really good look at it. So that's what my tree trunk looks like, and at the bottom it looks like the roots of the tree. Now I'm just going to separate my wires out into branches, and you can have as many branches as you want. I'm only going to do 3 for the purpose of this video, and I'm going to do, I would say, 4 wires together to make thicker branches. But you could do 6 branches on your tree or 7 branches, however many you want to do. It's entirely up to you. One thing I am seeing here is I think that I twisted my trunk a little too tall. That's really not a big deal. I can untwist the wires some, make the trunk a little shorter, and I'm probably going to do that, and then I'll show you guys what I'm going to do next. Okay, so I did untwist my trunk a little bit, and now I'm just kind of moving the wires around until I get them situated the way I want them. So I will take these and pull them up at the top, and these will get wrapped again. But first I am going to put some of those beads on them. And this is something that you can just play around with. There's really no wrong way to do it. And if your wires get bent up a little, that's okay, because this is supposed to look like a tree, and trees do not usually have really straight limbs. I've more or less got this the way I want it. Now I'm twisting the pieces together that are going to form the center of the tree and the limbs that branch out on the side. I have everything situated exactly as I want it now, and I am going to start putting some of those glass beads onto the wire. So I'm going to start with one side. First I need to get these cut off of the filament that they're on. And I'm just going to take a few off of here, or maybe I'll take the whole strand off and just make a small pile. It's easier doing this if you use the end of the actual jewelry wire to pick these beads up because they're so tiny. But I will put a few on the wire and just show you guys what I'm talking about. So even though I twisted those wires together to make the branches, I'm going to put the beads individually onto the wires. Kind of pull back with the camera, you can see what I'm talking about. And I'm just letting the beads fall down because I want the branches of the tree to look really full, like they have lots of little leaves on them. And I think that these are really great beads to use for this kind of project. I got these, I believe, at maybe a Hobby Lobby or a Michael's. So this is my progress so far, and you can kind of see what I've done here. I've put beads on each individual wire. Now I have the choice of just making this one entire branch, or I could separate this out and make this multiple branches. This is something you just take your creative liberties with, and you do it any way you want. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a branch that kind of splits. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to wrap it around the bracelet again, just like I did at the start of this project where I wrapped the wires at the bottom. So I'm going to give them a little bit of a twist because I want them to stay together. And then I'm going to start wrapping them around. And I am going to put beads on all of these and they'll all get wrapped, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. I'm back and I have gotten all of my beads on, and you can see what I've done. I've wrapped the ends of the excess wire around this bracelet, and now I'm just going to go back with my fingers and I'm just going to move these branches around until they're in a shape that I really like. And you can do this with pretty much any kind of beads. It's just all up to you. Just make it your own design. And I'm just kind of pulling these pieces apart just to give it more of kind of like a tree look, I guess. And this is something, it's just really fun to play around with once you get all of your pieces on here and get it secured. I probably could have put a few more beads on some of these pieces, but I didn't, and that's okay. Another thing you can do is you can take your jewelry pliers or even your fingernail if you don't mind raking them. And down here at the bottom, this is supposed to be the roots of the tree. And I like to take my jewelry pliers and just kind of twist and pull on them a little. And it gives it more of a real look to me. It gives it that gnarled root look that you'll often see on old trees where they're going into the ground. And another thing you can do is you can even take your jewelry pliers and give the trunk kind of a bend here and there, maybe in 2 or 3 different places, so it kind of has that bent tree look. A lot of people like to do their pieces that way. But this is how it's going to look. I'm just going to go back and tighten it up here and there. I'll probably give this a little twist just to make it look a little more gnarled. And hopefully this is making sense to you guys, but this is basically how you make a tree of life. I'm more or less satisfied with the design of this, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to add some pieces of chain to the bottom of this, and then I'll show you how I'm going to attach more bracelets and pieces to make it into a wind chime. I've already attached some chain to the bottom, and at the top I've put a jump ring. And I'm probably going to put something on the jump ring. Maybe I could use some twine or something like that. I'll figure that out as we go along. As for the bottom, this is chain that I had in my crafting supply, and I've kind of opened up the links on it and used it to attach to this bracelet. And I want different lengths of chain. So that's kind of what I've done here. I've got some pieces that are longer than the others. And here where I've opened the chain up, I'm just going to attach a bracelet, and I'm going to use my pliers and twist the link back together. So this chain is basically the same thing as opening up a jump ring. You kind of twist to open it, and then to close it back, you're just going to twist back in the opposite direction. So I'm going to get all of my bracelets put on here. Pretty simple. I'm going to start out by just putting maybe 3 bracelets, and we'll see how that looks. I've got an idea that I might even wrap some pieces to add to the bracelets just to give it a little bit more of a sparkle. But again, what I've done is I've opened up the link of the chain just like you would open up a jump ring. And then I'm going to put the bracelet in there. I think I'm going to put 2 bracelets on this one. Then you just twist to close this back up. One more bracelet to go, and then we'll have a look and just see how this has turned out. I found a few more pieces in my craft supply. I don't have plans to use these for anything else, so I thought, why not wrap these onto the bracelet just to give it more of a decorative look. And this doesn't have to be perfect. This is something that I'm just playing around with, but I thought, why not? This will be a really good idea. So I'm going to use the same wire that I used for making the tree of life, and I'm just going to cut a piece of this wire, and I'm not really going to measure out the length. I'm just going to eyeball this. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to wrap this. Now, this is not going to look perfect. I could probably have spent more time on it, but I'm just going to pull the 2 ends of the wire up, just like so, and I'm going to give this a twist. And that's good enough for me to hold this onto one of these bracelets and just kind of make it look decorative. So just a twist. I'm going to do a couple more of these, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how I'm going to attach them onto the bracelets. I'm pretty much going to do the same thing here. I'm just twisting the ends of the wire around one of the bracelets, and I'm going to try to get it on here as neatly as I can. I can always come back and adjust it because, again, this is a very soft wire, so it's pretty pliable and easy to work with. And I could probably have done a much better job at wrapping this. A lot of times when I'm doing stuff, I get in too big of a hurry. So this is how it looks so far. And I don't think this is going to look bad at all. I think this is going to look great. Now here, I had a piece that came off of an old lanyard, and I decided to add it to this to hang up. On my porch, I already have these hooks for hanging wind chimes, so I can just loop it over the hook. But so far, this is how this looks. I think it looks pretty neat. Another idea that I have is to add some more chain, maybe some shorter pieces of chain, and add a few more bracelets to make this a longer wind chime. I do think I'm going to add some more bracelets to this and make it longer. I'm not going to do it on camera, but what I will do is I will come back and show you guys how this is going to look once I hang it up on my porch. As far as this being weatherproof or rust proof, I highly doubt that. If you have a covered porch, it'll probably be okay. Another suggestion that I would have is you can go to any craft store and you can buy a clear coat spray. So that might be a good idea for something like this if you are going to hang it up outside. But I'll be back in a few minutes and I'll show you how this looks and sounds once I've hung it up on my back deck. Here is my finished project. I am on my back deck and I'm pretty sure you guys can hear the wind chimes that I already have hung up in the background. This one is going to make a really soft tinkling noise. I think this is a really great project. Thank you so much, Teresa, for giving me the idea. You guys be creative, take this idea and make something beautiful of your own. This is how this looks hung up. Definitely let me know what you think of this in the comments, and if there was anything different you would have done or anything extra that you would have added. If you guys enjoyed today's content, please remember to give me a thumbs up. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to share this project with me. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. Ring the bell for notifications and you'll be notified anytime I upload new content. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.